I want you to picture a scenario. Let's say it's 8 a.m.
Okay.
You've got your coffee, you're feeling good, and you turn on a global news stream. The anchor is speaking English. You speak English. You know all the grammar. You know the words, basically.
Yeah, I feel confident.
Totally. But as the sentences fly by, something about, I don't know, yield curves and geopolitical posturing, you realize you're only catching about 60% of the actual meaning. The rest is just
Noise. It's the illusion of fluency.
Yeah.
You hear the sounds, but the signal just isn't landing.
The illusion of fluency. That's perfect. And then, okay, let's make it worse.
Okay.
Fast forward to 2:00 p.m. You're in a high-stakes meeting. You have a brilliant idea, an idea that could genuinely save the project. You open your mouth to explain it, and the words that come out, they feel clunky. They feel, basic. You can see people's eyes glazing over. And you know you're smart, but you sound, I don't know, functional.
That is the plateau. It really is. It's the universal struggle of the advanced learner. You have absolutely mastered the survival skills.
Right.
You can order dinner, you can book a hotel, you can chat about the weather, no problem.
Right.
But there is a massive, massive gap between functional and masterful.
And that gap is exactly what we are diving into today. This isn't a grammar lesson. Please, nobody panic. We are not going to be conjugating verbs for the next hour.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
No, we're looking at language as a tool for influence.
We are dissecting a stack of really fascinating sources today. We've got transcripts from some specialized linguistic series, including English Mastery, English Insights, and Linguistic Nuances.
A really rich set of materials.
It is. And the mission today is pretty bold.
Yeah.
We want to take you from just understanding English to actually wielding it. We're talking about decoding the hidden codes in media, hacking your memory to retain complex words, and, structuring your own speech so you command authority.
It's really a masterclass in critical thinking, just using language as the lens. Because when you look at how the world speaks to us, politicians, economists, advertisers, it's never just about the words themselves.
It's about what's behind them.
It's about the agenda behind the words.
I love that, the agenda behind the words. So by the end of this hour, we want you, our listener, to have a toolkit. We want you to be able to spot a diplomatic lie from a mile away.
Yeah.
We want you to understand why your brain forgets new vocabulary so fast and how to stop it using something called the Ebbinghaus curve.
And we are going to talk about money. Literally, we have data later on showing how poor communication is costing companies hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
It's an incredible figure.
So if you want to raise, you should probably stick around for Section 5.
That stat absolutely blew my mind. But before we get to the output, how we speak, we have to start with the input, how we consume information.
Makes sense.
And the sources start with something we all see 100 times a day, but probably never, ever analyze: the news headline.
The linguistic puzzle of the modern age. It really is.
It is a puzzle, because if you actually stop and look at a headline, strictly speaking, it's broken English. It doesn't follow the rules we learned in school.
It's not just broken, it's a specific dialect. The sources almost frame it this way. We could call it headline-y.
Headlines. I like
And it exists for a very practical reason. Historically, you have to think about print newspapers. They had limited physical space on the page. Every single letter cost money and took up precious room.
Right. Inches of column space.
Exactly. So editors develop a shorthand to pack the maximum amount of action into the minimum amount of inches.
But hold on, we're digital now. We have infinite space on the internet. Why are we still doing it? That doesn't make sense.
That's the fascinating part, isn't it? It has evolved. It went from a space-saving necessity to a psychological trigger.
A trigger for what?
The sources point out that headlines creates urgency. When you strip away all the fluff, the filler words, it feels faster. It feels immediate. It hits you harder.
So what exactly are they stripping away? Like, what are the grammatical rules of headlines?
It's mainly two things. First, you'll notice the articles are gone. A and the, they just vanish.
Okay.
And second, the auxiliary verbs, little helper verbs, has been, all gone.
Okay, let's use an example. If I were speaking normally, a full sentence, I would say, the Prime Minister is facing a backlash over the new policy.
Right. That is a complete, grammatically sound, comfortable sentence. Your brain hears it and says, okay, cool, I have all the information.
But in headlines, that becomes,
PM faces backlash over new policy.
it does hit harder. PM faces backlash. It's so direct.
It is. But here is the real deep dive insight from the sources on this. By removing those helper words, the headline forces your brain to do more work.
What do you mean do more work?
You have to actively participate to bridge the grammatical gaps. You see PM and you see backlash. and your brain has to instantly calculate the relationship between them. Is faces a verb here, or is it a noun, like multiple faces?
Wait, I mean, it's obviously a verb, but I see what you mean. Without the little word is, my brain has to make a split-second decision to confirm that.
Exactly. And that micro moment of cognitive effort engages you. It wakes your brain up. It turns the news from a passive statement into an active prediction puzzle you have to solve.
A prediction puzzle. I've never thought of it that way. But puzzles can be tricky, and the sources had some absolutely hilarious examples of where this efficiency goes completely off the rails.
Oh, the ambiguities are the best part.
They are. When you cut too many words, you create these double meanings. I have to share my favorite one from the stack.
Will you do?
Okay, it's red tape holds up new bridge.
Lass. Yes, that is a classic. A true classic.
It's so good because it works on two completely different levels. As a native or advanced speaker, I know red tape is an idiom for bureaucracy.
Right. Administrative hassle.
So logically, I know the headline means administrative delays are preventing the bridge from opening.
That's the intended logical reading.
But because there are no helper words, because it's so stripped down, my brain also sees the literal meaning. And I get this image of a massive suspension bridge literally being held in the air by sticky red-colored tape.
Like it's a school project. Like it's held together with duct tape.
Exactly. It sounds like a complete structural disaster waiting to happen.
And that's the danger, but also the fun, of headlineese. Without the usual grammatical guardrails, meaning becomes fluid. There was another one I loved from the sources.
Go on.
Kids make nutritious snacks.
Oh, that is dark. That is very dark. Kids make nutritious snacks.
So are the children in the kitchen, being helpful, casually preparing some healthy food?
Or
the children in the ingredients?
it's like a headline from a fairy tale about a witch. It's a grim headline. But this is the point the sources are making. We can laugh about it, but this is actually a high-level comprehension skill. If you are learning English, or even if you're just tired at the end of a long day, these headlines can genuinely trip you up.
Absolutely. The advice from the text is to treat this as a game. Don't just read the headline, actively decode it.
How so?
Pause for just a second. Ask yourself, what are the missing words here? Okay, the kids are making nutritious snacks. By mentally inserting the grammar back into the sentence, you train your brain to anticipate context. It's a small exercise.
It's active reading versus passive reading.
Precisely that.
Now, headlines are one thing. They're often accidental puzzles.
Yeah.
But the sources move on from there to something much more deliberate, much more calculated.
Yes.
Political and diplomatic code. This is where people use words to deliberately hide the truth.
Or, to be a bit more charitable, perhaps to soften the truth. This is the art of euphemism.
Euphemism, that's a Greek word, isn't it? Something like speaking well.
Yes, eu for good and theme for speech. But in modern politics, it often means speaking vaguely. The sources point out that in the world of high-level diplomacy, you can almost never say something is just bad.
Why?
Bad is too definitive. It's too simple. It burns bridges and forces you to take a position you can't walk back from.
So what do they say instead of bad?
Everything is challenging. If a national economy is completely collapsing, it's a challenging fiscal environment.
Okay.
If two countries are on the absolute brink of war, it's a challenging security situation.
It sounds so manageable when you put it that way. Like it's just a difficult math problem to be solved, not an impending disaster.
And that's the point. It manages panic. It controls the narrative. But there is one specific phrase the sources unpacked that I found absolutely fascinating. I've heard it on the news 1,000 times and never thought twice about it.
What is it?
Frank and productive discussions.
Oh, yeah, I hear that constantly. The leaders met today for frank and productive discussions. To me, that sounds great. Frank means they were honest, and productive means they got stuff done. It sounds like a win.
See, that is what they want you to think.
Yeah.
But according to the diplomatic translators in our source material, that phrase is actually code for a total disaster.
A disaster? Really? How?
Okay, let's break it down. In diplomatic speak, frank is code for we disagreed openly. It means there was an argument. There was conflict.
So, not honest in a good way.
Not at all. If the talks were actually friendly and collaborative, they would use words like warm or cooperative or cordial. Frank means blunt. It means they were brutally honest with each other about their disagreements.
Okay, so frank means they fought. That's one half of it.
What about productive? Surely that means something good.
Productive is the participation trophy of diplomacy.
A participation trophy.
Yes, it usually just means nobody stormed out of the room.
Yeah.
We produced a meeting. We sat in the same room for a few hours. We didn't solve the problem. We didn't agree on anything, but we kept talking.
So frank and productive basically translates to.
They yelled at each other for 3 hours, but agreed to meet again next month.
That completely changes how I interpret the news. That's incredible. It's like a secret handshake for insiders.
It is. And once you start looking for these euphemisms, you can't unsee them. They're everywhere. The sources list a few corporate ones that act as camouflage. Think about the phrase, revenue enhancement.
Revenue enhancement. It sounds so positive, like we're finding magic money under the couch cushions.
It means raising your taxes. Or it means the company's raising its prices. But you can't say we're raising taxes because people hate that. Enhancing revenue sounds like a strategic, technical adjustment.
It's all about the framing. What about economical with the truth? I've heard that one.
That's a classic, very polite, often British way of calling someone a liar.
A liar, yes.
He was being economical with the truth, as if truth is a currency that he is trying to save, to spend wisely. It's a gentle way to say he was omitting key facts or just outright lying.
And then there's the darkest one, downsizing.
Or right-sizing, or restructuring. Or my favorite, synergizing the workforce.
Energizing the workforce.
These are all sterile, mechanical, bloodless terms for firing people. They take the raw humanity out of the action. You're not firing a person with a family. You're optimizing a resource.
It's grammar as a shield. And speaking of shields, the sources highlight the passive voice as the ultimate political weapon for avoiding blame.
This is absolutely crucial for critical listening. In a normal, active sentence, there is a subject doing an action to an object. I made a mistake. I am the subject. I did the action. It's clear.
But politicians hate being the subject when things go wrong.
Exactly. So they flip it into the passive voice. The most famous example is from the Reagan administration, but it's used by everyone, everywhere, all the time. Mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made. It sounds like the weather, like it just happened. Rain fell. Mistakes were made.
It completely detaches the person from the event. It acknowledges that the bad thing happened, but it absolutely refuses to say who did it. It's an admission without an admission of guilt.
So you should listen for that.
If you hear a CEO or a politician say, it was decided that the branch must close, your alarm bells should be ringing. Who decided? Why aren't they saying I decided or the board decided?
It's a way of floating above the responsibility. The sources also mention another subtle trick, modality, which is all about hedging verbs. This is the difference between saying something will happen versus it might happen.
Oh, the might, could, should dance. It's constant. Watch out for phrases like, it appears that, or the evidence suggests. These are all distancing mechanisms.
How so?
Look, if I say the economy will recover next year, I am making a firm promise. I'm putting my reputation on the line. You can hold me to that.
Right.
But if I say it appears the economy might be showing signs of a potential recovery, what have I promised you?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all. I have given myself an escape hatch for every possible outcome. It's the language of non-commitment.
It's slippery. It is so slippery. And speaking of the economy, let's pivot to that, because the source material on economic news was, for me, really heavy. It feels like a foreign language inside of a language.
Financial journalism has its own dialect, absolutely. It's dense with metaphor and very specific jargon.
And it starts with the animal metaphors. The bulls and the bears. I have to admit, I always get these mixed up.
A lot of people do. But the source offers a very physical, very memorable way to remember it. Think about how the animal actually attacks.
Okay, I'm visualizing a bull right now.
How does a bull attack? It lowers its head and thrusts its horns upward.
Upward, okay.
So a bull market is one where prices are going up, everyone is optimistic, charging forward, bullish.
And the bear. How does a bear attack?
A bear rears up on its hind legs and swipes its massive paws downward to crush its prey.
Downward.
So a bear market is when prices are falling, people are pessimistic, retreating, bearish.
That is actually really helpful. Horns up, paws down. I think I'll remember that. But beyond the animals, the sources emphasize the need for precision. And this is where I think a lot of people, myself included, get completely tripped up.
You mean the percentages?
Yes. There's a massive world-altering difference between a number rising by 2% and rising by 2 percentage points.
This is a critical distinction, and financial journalists sometimes get it wrong, which can lead to massive misunderstandings of the world. Let's do the math on it.
Okay, math time. Let's do it.
Imagine an interest rate is currently at 1%. That's your mortgage rate. a nice low 1%.
Okay, I wish.
If the news says rates rose by 2 percentage points, that is simple addition. You take the original 1% and you add 2 points to it. 1 plus 2 equals 3.
So my interest rate goes from 1% to 3%. That's a tripling of my interest payment. That is huge news.
Massive. Catastrophic for some homeowners.
Uh-huh.
But if the news says rates rose by 2%, that is a percentage of the original number.
Percentage of 1%?
Right. What is 2% of what? It's tiny. It's 0.02.
Okay.
So the new interest rate goes from 1% to 1.02%.
That is basically nothing. That's a rounding error. That's a rounding error that doesn't affect my life at all.
Exactly. So one headline means the economy is stable, nothing to see here. And the other headline, rising by 2 percentage points, means panic in the streets. If you don't hear the difference between percent and percentage points, you don't know if you should be celebrating or panicking.
That is a complete game changer for listening to the news. The expert in the source also suggested a visualization technique specifically for listening to financial news on the radio or a podcast.
Yes, because you don't have the graph in front of you.
Right, you're often in the car, you can't see the charts.
Yes. The advice is to visualize the line on the graph yourself. When the reporter says a sharp decline, close your eyes, or keep them open if you're driving, please, and imagine a steep, terrifying cliff on a chart.
A vertical drop.
And if they say a gentle correction or a slight dip, imagine a slow, gentle slope. It helps turn abstract audio into concrete mental concepts.
I like that. It's making the data physical in your mind. Now, before we leave this whole input section, we have to talk about accents.
Yes.
Because the sources mention that for a lot of learners, the standard news voice, the very clear standard American or British anchor voice, is easy. But as soon as you get an interview with someone from a different region, say Scotland or India or Texas, comprehension can drop off a cliff.
And the sources frame this so beautifully. Variety is a feature, not a bug. English is a global language. If you only understand standard CNN American or BBC British, you are effectively deaf to half of the English-speaking world.
That's a great way to put it. The source had some fun Australian examples. I have to admit, Australian slang and the accent can trip me up sometimes.
Oh, the Aussies love to shorten everything and add an O or an IE at the end. It's a national sport. Arvo for afternoon.
Server for service station.
Arby for barbecue. Brekkie for breakfast.
So a sentence like, I'm going to the servo this Arvo before the Barbie. If you haven't heard it before, it honestly sounds like complete gibberish.
It does. But the tip here from the sources is fantastic. Don't avoid the accents that are hard for you. Lean into them. Seek them out. The source suggests a practice called comparative listening.
What's that?
You listen to the same global news story, say on CNN. Then you immediately switch to Al Jazeera English, then to ABC Australia, then maybe a news channel in Singapore.
So you already know the facts of the story from the first report.
Exactly. Your brain isn't struggling to understand the content. It can dedicate all of its processing power to the sounds, to the accent, to the rhythm.
You're calibrating your ear.
You are. You're training your brain to recognize that data and data and data are all the same word. It builds incredible mental flexibility.
So that's the input. We're decoding headlines, we're spotting euphemisms, we're visualizing economic data, and we're embracing accents.
Yep.
But now we hit the wall. The sources talk about the B2 to C1 gap.
The plateau.
Yes. This is where you understand most of the input, but you want to upgrade your own engine. You want to build a vocabulary that isn't just functional, but nuanced and precise.
This is a huge leap. Most learners, and frankly many native speakers, sit comfortably at a B2 level. B2 is, I can explain what I want, I get my job done, I can say, I am very happy, or I am very sad.
That's functional. It works.
It is functional.
Yeah.
But C1 is nuance. C1 is I am elated. It's I am exultant. It's I am crestfallen. Is I am cautiously optimistic. It's the difference between a black and white sketch and a high-definition color photograph.
The analogy I loved from the host in the source material was the toolbox.
It's perfect. It really is. At the intermediate B2 level, you have a hammer, a screwdriver, and maybe a wrench. You can build a table, but it might look a little rough.
You can get the job done.
You can. But at the advanced C1 level, you have a specialized workshop. You don't just have a generic hammer. You have a mallet for gentle taps, a claw hammer for pulling nails, a sledgehammer for demolition, a tack hammer for delicate work.
So you can pick the exact right tool for the job. You're not just hitting everything with the same generic word like good or bad.
Right. But here is the problem with having a massive toolbox. You have to keep track of all the tools. You have to remember where you put them.
And this brings us to the science of memory. The sources bring up a German psychologist, Hermann Ebbinghaus.
Yes, and his forgetting curve.
This was a serious reality check for me. I always assumed that if I learned a new word, if I looked it up, it was there, somewhere. But Ebbinghaus says, not so much.
It's actually terrifying when you first see the numbers. Ebbinghaus was a pioneer in the late 19th century, and he did these incredibly rigorous experiments on himself, memorizing nonsense syllables.
Why nonsense syllables?
To make sure there was no prior emotional connection. He wanted to test pure memory. And he found that memory isn't a stable storage unit like a hard drive. It's a leaking bucket.
How leaky are we talking? Give me the bad news.
Okay, here it is. If you learn a list of new information today, a list of new words, for example, and you do nothing to review it, within just 20 minutes, you've already lost 40% of it.
20 minutes. That's the drive home from the library. 40% is gone already.
Gone. And within 24 hours, you have lost roughly 70%.
70% in one day. That explains so much. That explains why I can look up a word on Tuesday, say ubiquitous, I can use it in a sentence, feel really smart, and then by Wednesday morning I'm reaching for it and there's just a blank space. It's gone.
It's not you. It's human biology. And the sources make a really important point here that can reframe this. Forgetting is actually a feature, not a bug.
How on earth is forgetting a feature? It feels like a major flaw.
Think about your evolutionary ancestors. If you remembered every single leaf you saw on a walk, every distinct cloud shape, every background noise, every single detail of your day, your brain would be completely overwhelmed with useless data.
It would be too much noise.
Too much noise. The brain is designed to dump non-survival information to save energy and focus on what matters.
Sure.
Is a baby poisonous? Where's the predator?
So when I learn a sophisticated word like reciprocate, my brain looks at it and says, is this going to stop a tiger from eating me? No. Okay, delete.
Pretty much. Unless you flag it as important. You have to actively convince your brain that this particular word is important for your survival in the modern world.
And how do you do that?
The solution is spaced repetition. This is the hack to flatten the forgetting curve.
Spaced repetition. Tell me more.
You have to review the new word at precisely the moment you are about to forget it. The timing is crucial. If you learn it today, you must review it tomorrow. Then you don't review it for 3 days. Then you wait a week, then a month.
So the intervals get longer and longer.
They get longer. Each time you pull that memory back from the edge of the abyss of forgetting, the neural pathway gets stronger. You're telling your brain, no, this one is important. Keep it.
And the sources emphasize that emotion plays a huge role here too, right? The brain retains words attached to stories or feelings much better than just dry facts from a list.
Oh, massively. There was a lovely anecdote in one of the sources about the word serendipity.
Serendipity, a great word.
The speaker didn't learn it from a flashcard. They learned it because they were traveling and ran into an old friend from their hometown in a random cafe in a foreign city. A completely chance encounter.
A serendipitous meeting.
A truly serendipitous meeting. The surprise, the joy, the emotion of that moment glued the word to the memory forever.
So the takeaway is, if you want to learn a word, don't just read the definition. Write a sentence about something that actually happened to you using that word. Connect it to your life, to an emotion.
Exactly. Anchor it to something real.
Now let's get tactical. The sources offer some efficiency hacks for building vocabulary, because none of us has time to memorize the entire dictionary. The first hack is all about word families.
This is about working smart, not hard. Don't learn one isolated word. Learn the root of the word. The example given in the text is the Latin root construct.
Okay, construct, to build. Let's see how many words we can pull from that one root.
Well, you have construction, the noun. You have constructive, the adjective like constructive criticism. You have reconstruct, the verb, to build again.
Deconstruct, to take it apart.
Constructively, the adverb. You've suddenly learned 5 or 6 words for the price of 1.
And it feels less like memorizing and more like solving a puzzle.
It is. If you learn the logic of common prefixes and suffixes, like knowing that re usually means again, or un means not, or that able means capable of, you become a word detective.
A word detective. I like that.
You can encounter a word you've never seen before, like unreconstructible, break it down into its parts, unreconstruct, able, and make a very educated guess about its meaning.
That's empowering. Another hack the sources mention is something called collocations. This was interesting because it's about the logic of partnership between words.
Or rather, the complete lack of logic. That's the key. Collocations are just words that habitually go together in a language through convention. There is often no grammatical or logical reason for it. The classic example is heavy rain.
Why not strong rain? Strong makes perfect sense. The wind is strong. A person is strong. Why isn't the rain strong?
It just isn't. To a native or highly advanced speaker's ear, strong rain sounds wrong. It sounds like the uncanny valley of language. It's understandable, but it marks you instantly as a non-native speaker.
Or high price versus heavy price.
Exactly.
Mm.
You can pay a heavy price for a mistake, metaphorically, but the literal price of a car is high, not heavy.
There's no rule for that. You just have to know.
You just have to absorb it. And the source points out a common trap for Romance language speakers, the difference between making a decision and taking a decision.
I hear that a lot. We need to take a decision on this matter.
And while everyone understands what it means, it lacks that C1 level of naturalness. In English, we make decisions. So the advice from the sources is clear. Don't learn isolated words.
What you mean?
Don't just learn the word decision. Learn the entire chunk. Make a decision. Don't just learn business. Learn the chunk. Run a business. Learn words in their natural partnerships.
So focus on the pairs, the phrases. The final tip on vocabulary was about realistic goal setting. And I appreciated this because I'm definitely the type of person who buys a vocabulary book, vows to learn 50 words a day, does it for 3 days, feels overwhelmed, and then the book gathers dust forever.
The classic binge and bust cycle of learning. The source advises strongly against that. They suggest a micro-habit approach.
How micro are we talking?
1 to 2 words a day. That's it.
That feels almost too easy. It feels like I'm not doing enough.
That's precisely why it works. It's sustainable, but the key is relevance. Don't learn random words from a generic list. If you were a doctor, learn advanced medical verbs. If you're buying a house, learn real estate terms like escrow or amortization or contingency.
So it's about your personal context.
Context is king. A relevant word is a useful word, and a useful word is a memorable word.
1 to 2 words a day. Over a year, that's what? Somewhere between 350 and 700 words. That's a massive upgrade to the toolbox.
It completely transforms your ability to communicate with precision.
So we've got the input decoded, we've got the vocabulary engine running. Now we get to the section that I found the most fascinating and honestly the most challenging, the nuance. The difference between denotation and connotation.
This is the emotional palette of language.
Eh.
This is where you stop being a robot that just states facts and start being a human who persuades and connects.
Okay, let's define the terms quickly, just to be clear. Denotation is the dictionary definition. It's the literal core meaning. It's just the facts.
Right. Blue is a color on the visible light spectrum. That's the denotation. But connotation is the emotional baggage, the cultural association the word carries.
So blue can connote sadness. I'm feeling blue.
Exactly. And the sources argue that this is where most communication really happens, not in the dictionary definition, but in the connotation. And this is an absolute minefield in the workplace.
A minefield. That's a good word for it. The classic example provided is the difference between cheap and economical.
Oh, this is a big one. A career-defining one sometimes. Denotatively, from a dictionary perspective, they both mean low cost. If you say this software solution is cheap, or this software solution is economical, factually, you are saying the same thing regarding its price tag.
But emotionally, the feeling they create.
They are from totally different worlds. Cheap has a negative connotation. It implies poor quality, tackiness, maybe it's going to break. It suggests you were cutting corners and being irresponsible.
So if I go to my boss and say, hey, I found a cheap solution to our data problem, she might actually panic.
She'll think it's going to fail and cost more in the long run. But if you walk in and say, I found an economical solution, she hears efficiency. She hears smart resource management. You sound like a prudent, trustworthy manager.
One word risks your reputation. The other builds it. That's incredible. Another pair the sources highlighted is stubborn versus determined.
Oh, we all know people who fit these descriptions. If you like the person, they are determined, they stick to their guns, they have conviction. It's admirable.
A positive trait.
But if you don't like them, or you disagree with them, they are stubborn, they are unreasonable, they're rigid. It's the exact same behavior, just framed differently based on your personal bias.
There was one pair in the connotation list that actually stopped me in my tracks. It wasn't about cost or personality. It was curious versus nosy.
Ah, yes. the danger of inquiring too much.
Well, it's not just about inquiring. The sources took a bit of a detour here into sociolinguistics. They argue that these two words, which denote the exact same action of asking questions to gain information, are often weaponized differently depending on who is speaking.
This is the gender bias component that the research highlights.
I read this and my first thought was, surely we're past this in the modern workplace, but the data in the source was pretty compelling. It's a persistent, unconscious bias.
It is. It's about the perceived permission to access information. In many corporate cultures, historically and even now, men are often viewed as the architects of the business. So when a man asks a lot of questions, why are we doing it this way? Who authorized this budget? What's the ROI on that project? The connotation is often thoroughness.
Right, he's getting to the bottom of it. He's being a diligent guardian of the company's resources. He's being determined.
But the source argues that when a woman asks those exact same questions, especially if she asks too many of them, the connotation can flip. She isn't being a guardian. She is intruding. She is being nosy.
It's the difference between being an auditor and being a gossip.
Precisely. And for anyone listening to this, especially managers, this is a massive blind spot check. When you're writing a performance review, are you calling him investigative and her intrusive for doing the exact same thing? It's a powerful question to ask yourself.
That is a heavy takeaway. It really shows that vocabulary isn't just about picking a word from a thesaurus. It's about power dynamics, culture, and bias. And speaking of dynamics, connotations shift over time. They aren't set in stone.
They evolve constantly. Just ask any teenager. The source mentions the word sick.
That skateboard trick was sick.
Right. For most of history, sick denotes illness. Vomit. It's a very negative word. But in youth slang, it is flipped to connote excellence. It's a high compliment.
Or the word literally.
Of the great literally debate. I literally died laughing.
Language purists hate this.
They do. Literally used to mean in a literal, non-figurative sense. Now, it has evolved through common usage to become an intensifier for figurative statements. The connotation has shifted from factual accuracy to emotional emphasis.
It's not about facts anymore. It's about the strength of the feeling. And viral. 10 years ago, if something went viral in your office, you called a doctor. You quarantined the building.
Now, if your marketing content goes viral, you pop the champagne and ask for a promotion. From a deadly disease to the ultimate form of fame. It shows how incredibly fluid language is.
It also shows how powerful framing is. The sources touch on persuasion, specifically in the political arena. How you label something can completely change how people vote on it.
Absolutely. The tax relief versus tax cuts example is a masterclass in connotative framing.
Break that down for me. Why is the word relief so much more powerful?
If a politician calls their policy a tax cut, it's neutral. It's a mathematical term. Some numbers on a spreadsheet go down, it's cold.
Okay.
But if they call it tax relief, they're using a powerful metaphor. Relief is what you get when you stop pain or remove a burden. It implies that taxes are an affliction, a heavy weight on your back.
So by just using the word relief, you have already won half the argument. You've established that taxes are inherently bad.
Exactly. You frame the entire debate before it has even started. The same goes for death tax versus inheritance tax.
Inheritance tax sounds neutral, maybe even a little positive. An inheritance is a windfall for wealthy people, but death tax.
Death tax sounds like the government is showing up at a funeral to punish a grieving family for the crime of dying. It's emotionally charged and highly effective. The word choice dictates the emotional reaction.
Yeah. So a note for you, the listener.
Yeah.
Pay attention to the labels. Always ask yourself, am I being informed or am I being framed?
Always ask that question.
Okay, we've decoded the input, we've built the vocabulary engine, and we've mastered the nuance. Now, the final piece of the puzzle. We have to output. We have to speak.
Right.
The sources shift here to structuring academic and professional communication. This is for that listener who has to give a big presentation tomorrow and is freaking out a little.
The architecture of discourse sounds very fancy, but it's really about a simple idea. Being kind to your audience's brain.
Being kind to the brain. I like that. The first rule, according to the sources, is give them a roadmap.
Yes. You have to reduce their cognitive load. If you just stand up and start talking, the audience has to work incredibly hard to figure out where you are going. Are we talking about the past, the future? Are you presenting a problem, a solution?
It's exhausting to have to guess the structure.
It is. So you start by saying, good morning. Today I'm going to cover 3 things. First, the problem we're facing. Second, the solution I'm proposing. And third, the budget we'll need. Suddenly, the audience relaxes. They have a map. They know where the finish line is, and they can follow along.
And then as you go, you have to use signposting. These are the verbal bridges that guide them along the map.
Simple phrases like, moving on to my second point, or however there's a challenge with that, or in conclusion. The host and the source used a great analogy for these. He called them the mortar between the bricks.
Without the mortar, the wall of your argument just falls down.
Exactly. If you just jump from point A to point B without a transition, you lose people. You need to explicitly say, now that we've established the problem, let's look at the solution. That simple sentence resets the audience's attention and prepares them for the next idea.
Let's talk about authority. Because I think a lot of us feel that to have authority, we have to sound like an absolute genius. We use big words. We never admit we're wrong. But the sources say that's actually the exact opposite of what works.
This is what they call the cursive jargon. The source tells a great story about a speaker at a conference using the word heterostaticity in a general business meeting without defining it.
Heterostaticity, I don't even know what that is. It sounds like a disease a dinosaur would get.
It's a statistics term regarding the variance of errors in a regression model. But unless you were in a room full of statisticians, using it didn't make the speaker look smart. It made the audience feel stupid and alienated. It broke the connection.
So true authority comes from clarity, not complexity.
Exactly. And the sources mention a wonderful paradox about confidence. Admitting what you don't know actually builds trust and authority.
That seems so counterintuitive.
It is. It's called intellectual humility.
Yeah.
If someone in the audience asks a tough question and you try to bluff your way through an answer, people can smell it a mile away. You look insecure.
Right.
But if you say, that is an excellent question, I honestly don't have the data on that right now, but I will look into it and get back to you by the end of the day, you actually gain credibility.
Why? What's the psychology there?
Because you're showing that you value accuracy and truth more than your own ego. You are demonstrating that you're trustworthy.
That is so freeing. You don't have to pretend to be perfect. You just have to be honest and clear.
And concrete. The research cited in the sources shows that concrete examples create much stronger memory traces than abstract concepts. Don't just talk about optimizing our logistical supply chain.
What should you do instead?
Tell a story about how a specific truck driver named Dave saved 20 minutes on his route by taking a different highway exit, and how that change, scaled up, saves the company $1 million a year.
Make it real. Use analogies. Bridge the known to the unknown. Now let's talk about the physical act of speaking. The sources call it the music of speech, or prosody.
This is so often overlooked. You can have the best, most well-structured script in the world, but if you deliver it in a flat, nervous monotone at 200 words per minute, no one will remember a single thing.
The sources mention the power of the pause.
Pausing is scary for speakers. Silence feels like failure. But a brief 1-second pause right before a key point acts like a verbal highlighter. The most important thing to remember is pause this. That tiny moment of silence wakes the brain up. It creates suspense.
And what about the speed limit for speech?
Research suggested the sweet spot for comprehension is around 150 to 160 words per minute.
150 to 160.
Much faster. And people can't process the information. Much slower. And their minds start to drift off.
I feel like I talk way faster than that when I get nervous. The adrenaline kicks in.
We all do. Adrenaline makes us speed up. The trick is to be conscious of it. Take a breath. Look at your notes. Deliberately hit the brakes.
And we have to keep them engaged. The sources say the average adult attention span drops off a cliff after how long?
About 10 to 15 minutes. That's the hard limit for a single mode of delivery.
So what do? We can't just end the presentation after 10 minutes.
No, you just have to vary the delivery. If you've been lecturing and explaining data for 10 minutes, switch to a personal story. If you've been telling a story, ask the audience a rhetorical question. If you've been talking, show a short video clip. You have to change the mode to reset their attention clock.
And above all, be authentic.
Yes, the sources are clear on this. Authentic enthusiasm, even if it's a little clumsy, beats polished robotic perfection every single time.
I would so much rather listen to someone who genuinely cares and stumbles a bit than a perfect robot who is just reading a script.
Absolutely. Connection over perfection.
We've covered a lot of ground, but I know what some listeners might be thinking. This sounds like a lot of work. Why should I bother? My emails are fine. My meetings are okay. Well, the sources have a very, very expensive answer to that question.
They do.
This brings us to our final section. Section 5, the ROI of clarity.
The return on investment. This isn't just about sounding smart or getting a good grade on a presentation. This is about the bottom line.
Hit us with the Siemens statistic, because this number made my jaw drop.
A comprehensive study by Siemens, the massive global industrial company, found that miscommunication costs a company with just 100 employees an average of $420,000 per year.
Nearly $500,000 for a small company. Just flushed down the toilet because of bad communication. How does that even happen?
Think about the daily mechanics of confusion. You send a vague email to your team, let's handle the project. The recipient doesn't know what handle means or which project you're even talking about. They email you back, with a project, what do you mean? You're in a meeting, so you don't reply for 3 hours.
So they guess.
They guess. You do the wrong work. Hours are wasted. You then have to call a meeting with 3 people to clarify the original email.
That's hours and hours of salaried time.
Multiplied by every employee every single day. It's a productivity black hole, and that's just internal communication.
Externally, unclear proposals and presentations cost you clients.
There's a great quote in the source, clarity equals competence. If your proposal is confusing and full of jargon, the potential client assumes your work will be confusing and disorganized. They will not trust you with their money.
So clarity isn't a soft skill, it's a moneymaker. How do we do a clarity check on our own work? The sources give us some tactical edits to save us from losing that $500,000.
First, check your sentence length. Research shows that comprehension drops off a cliff when sentences exceed 25 words. If you have a sentence that runs for 3 or 4 lines, cut it in half. Be ruthless.
And use the active voice. We talked about this with politicians, but it matters in business too.
Hugely. The team completed the project on time. It's energetic, it's clear, responsibility is taken, versus the project was completed on time by the team. It's dull, it's passive, it's weak.
And the self-editing hacks? I love the fresh eyes tip.
This is the golden rule of editing. Wait 24 hours. If you write a high-stakes email or a big report, do not hit send immediately. Sleep on it. When you read it the next morning, you will see the typos and the confusing phrases almost immediately. Your brain is reset.
But what if you can't wait? What if the deadline is in an hour?
Then you have to trick your brain. The best trick is to read it aloud.
Really? Just to yourself?
Yes. Your ear will catch clunky phrasing that your eye misses. If you stumble over a sentence while reading it out loud, your reader will absolutely stumble over it in their head. Fix it.
What's another trick?
Change the format.
Yeah.
If you wrote it in a Google Doc, copy and paste it into an email, or print it out, or read it on your phone. Tricking your brain into seeing the text in a new physical way reveals the errors your brain had gotten used to.
And finally, watch out for the clarity killers. Vague pronouns. He told him about it, and it was a concern. Who told who about what? Be specific.
And those excessive qualifiers we talked about before. Those little words that undermine your authority.
Yeah.
I sort of think that we could maybe try this idea.
Just sounds so weak.
It does. Just say, I propose we try this idea. Be direct. Get rid of the fluff.
Wow. We have really traveled a long way in this hour. We started with the input, decoding the weird grammar of headlines, the secret code of diplomats, and the animal metaphors of economics.
Then we moved through the engine. How to use the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve to hack your memory, building word families instead of single words, and mastering the subtle art of collocations.
We explored the nuance, the powerful emotional difference between cheap and economical, the hidden gender bias of calling someone nosy, and how political framing shapes reality before a debate even begins.
And finally, we ended on the output, structuring your speech with roadmaps, using silence as a powerful tool, and editing for the kind of clarity that can literally save a company $500,000.
It's a lot, but it's so empowering. The sources mention over and over that active engagement is the key. You can't just passively let language wash over you anymore. You have to participate. You have to be the word detective.
Absolutely. Communication is a loop. Better listening leads to better thinking, and better thinking leads to better, more influential speaking. They all feed each other.
So here is our final provocation for you, the listener. It's a little challenge from us. In the next 24 hours, we want you to do one of 2 things. Your choice.
Okay.
1, spot a euphemism in the wild. Find a frank and productive discussion or a revenue enhancement in a news article or on TV, and just to yourself, call it out for what it is.
Or option 2, identify one single moment in your own day where you could swap a cheap word for an economical one.
Yeah.
Upgrade one specific word in an email or a conversation to be more precise and more powerful.
Just one. Start small, but start. Treat every conversation from now on as a deep dive.
And just see what happens to your influence, to your clarity when you do.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the English language. It's been a real pleasure unpacking all of this with you.
Likewise. It was a lot of fun. Keep listening and keep thinking.
And we'll see you on the next deep dive. Goodbye.